Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I start every podcast different than that. I say those words, but the energy is completely different. It is like, hi, welcome. But I want you to know right from the get-go how much this podcast means to me, how serious this topic is, how much I love this guest with all my heart, and how I want you to experience the words that Amber has to say the way I experience them. And so with that, let me introduce my guest for today is Amber Washington, my dear friend. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you so much. Perfect.
Amber, how long have we known each other? Not very long, like 3 years?
Not even 3. It's been a year and a half. Yeah, because it was last Valentine's. We met at a Galentine's event. That was 2024. So
wow.
It feels like we've known each other a lot longer than that.
So did I meet you at that where I spoke and we okay. And that was it? That was before the Galentine's Day event?
Yeah, if you remember, you're very good friends with my very good friend Megan, who works for the refuge.
Oh, the refuge, yeah.
And so Megan had stopped to say hello, and I had started to notice you because I was getting out in the community more. I was more involved in different events, and so I was seeing you online. So you were familiar to me just from you're obviously heavily involved in the refuge. So anyhow, I said, hi, I'm Amber. And you looked at me and you said, oh, I know. Like,
I know you.
Each other. And I said, no, we
never met. I'm like, oh, yes, we have. Yes, we have. I was so sure that we had met before. I was so sure that we were connected. And so it was
past
like
lives, no doubt, right?
Right?
At this point, we know that there's a deeper connection, and
there is a deeper connection. And when we met, you had already come so far on your journey, just like I had come far on my journey.
Yes.
And before we started the podcast, you said to me, you've only known me such a little piece of my life. The things we're going to talk on the podcast were really the majority of my life.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I've already seen that. Because the thing that I want all women to know that are listening to this is that women who have been through the journey recognize other women who have been through the journey.
We sure do.
If we are not healed, we cannot see the healing in others.
Yeah.
We cannot see that they have healed. We continue to want to put them in a box that says, I'm sorry, they're not healed. They're just pretending.
Yeah.
That's only a reflection that we are not healed. But I see you, Amber, as healed and healing, just like I am healed and healing.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
And that's why we can connect, because I'm not trying to put you in that box anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that. I love that you said that because for the longest time, I felt like my book is called My Journey to W. And I felt like I couldn't finish it. Like, okay, I could write bits and pieces of it, but I didn't feel like I could finish it because I wasn't healed. And as I was writing, this was back in 2022 where I wrote the bulk of my book. As I was writing and I get to the end, I was like, Amber, your book is called The Journey. The Journey, like it was a moment. How did I not realize that? And that was when I really was like, listen, we can heal different pieces of us, but life is happening until it's not.
Right.
And so it's this journey, and the beauty of healing the very most broken parts of us is that it prepares us for other things that are inevitably going to happen, and gives us the tools, and it gives us the community, the people, the support, everything that is so vital to get through the hardest parts of life. That's what we gain in taking this journey and undertaking something that a lot of people cannot do because, as you well know, it is very hard, but so worth it.
But so worth it. And it is very hard. And it doesn't end. And
No.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Do you know how boring this life would be if it did end and it was just like flatline?
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes John, my husband, as you know, you know John,
Yeah.
is taken back with, I'll say something, he'll just look at me like, I thought you were over that. I'm like, we're alcoholics. We're never truly over it. We are focused every day on where we want to be and
Yeah.
where we're going. And
Yeah.
that's one of the beauties that I see you have, Amber, in being in the journey, is that you can show people how to be healed and healing at
Oh,
the same time.
thank you.
That is a gift that you have, that you
Thank
are giving. And like we talked about, you just finished your book. It's coming out in the fall of 2025. So no
Yeah.
matter when you listen to this podcast, you'll know that it's available for you.
Yes.
And we're going to include at the end of the podcast all the links so you can find this amazing book and how to follow Amber on different places, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook, wherever. I'm sorry, I don't tweet and I don't TikTok.
I don't tweet, but I'm everywhere else. Yep.
Yeah, I'm everywhere else. I don't TikTok either. Somebody sent me a link yesterday. It said, "Here, you follow me TikTok." I'm like, I'm sorry, just like I don't.
I TikTok, but
I'm sure you do because you have so many great videos. All right, we got to catch people up with who
yes.
you are.
Okay.
All right, so let's start with the beginning. Where you
Yeah.
came from.
Yeah.
And what brought you to the point where you realized, I need some healing?
Oh gosh. That actually happened at a very, very young age. I grew up here in Utah, in Orem, and the oldest of 5 children.
That
And
explains a lot.
yeah, right? It does. It does. And, at the very early ages and stages of childhood, I just remember feeling like it was perfect. All of my grandparents lived within a mile radius of us, on my dad's side. So everybody was very close on my dad's side. So my grandparents, both sets of great grandparents, cousins, everybody was very close, and that's how we grew up. That's how we spent time together. Um, when I was almost 9 years old, right before my 9th birthday, I did something that statistically is really rare. And that's that I told my parents that I was being sexually abused by my grandfather. And I don't know where that courage came from, other than this is something that I write a lot about in my book. But, a resilience and a stubbornness that I was born with. And um that ended the sexual abuse that I was experiencing, but me using my voice changed the course of my life. And it wasn't me using my voice. It was him making a decision to take something from me that wasn't his to begin with, and that was my innocence. He threatened me with, if you ever tell anybody, you will be in big trouble. And the truth of those words still exist in my life.
Yeah.
And that is what I have had to fight through forever. And so, yeah, that's where the story starts. That's, I was young. This is my life.
Yeah.
And so I can't pinpoint exactly where the abuse started. I've had conversations with different people in the family and tried to put together a timeline. So I have that to the best of my ability. But, 6, 7 years old, that's
Yeah.
my life. So
I guess one of the questions, Amber, that I have, and I know that a lot of people have because we encounter this so much. Did your parents believe you?
The night that I told my parents, they were getting ready to go to a temple session. And
So,
we
for
had a
those of you who are not LDS or members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a temple session is our temples. The temples that are here in Utah and everywhere around the world are where you
Mhm.
go to do special service in the church for your ancestors. It's where they are married. Um, and so it's a very sacred thing, and there's a lot of big responsibility. You're supposed to go there every month. And
Yeah,
so that
yes.
her parents were having one of these very special nights in a very sacred place.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, this was, a monthly event. This was something that was and is still very important to them. And so we had a babysitter lined up, and I just remember hearing my mom on the phone, the babysitter had canceled. And so, she's making phone calls trying to find somebody else, and she's not having any success. And so I remember just hearing one of them say, let's call Walt. And as soon as I heard my grandfather's name, the pit in my stomach, um, because the abuse it was escalating at this point. Um, and I knew that if he came to my home where, my safe spot, my bedroom, with hours alone with me and my two younger sisters, um, that were not being abused. I knew what my night was going to be like, and that's where this stubbornness or this resilience or whatever it was, fear for sure.
Yeah.
But I went in and I told my parents. I don't remember that conversation. I have a very vivid picture of me walking through our kitchen to get to their bedroom. And then that's my next memory is actually of having a conversation um with a different babysitter. They ended up still going to the temple that night. They called somebody that was much closer to my age. So too young to be babysitting us, but I remember having this conversation with her, and then my memory is just very spotty with very specific things that happened afterwards. But my parents went to the temple. That's something that, them leaving me. And I understand why they did that. They needed time to process, but to be left,
Oh, yeah.
after that, that is something that has imprinted on me. And just honestly, it's been through writing my book and a lot of therapy, that I've been able to pinpoint that moment as the reason for, like, I get very anxious if I'm waiting on an answer, if
Mhm.
especially in a moment of vulnerability, if I have expressed feelings for somebody, if I'm waiting, to hear on a job or just these bigger life events, but especially if I've been vulnerable
Wow.
about my feelings and I'm not getting a response, ooh, the anxiety is
I think
here.
that's brilliant that you have been able to process that and pinpoint that and to understand where that anxiety comes
Yeah.
from now if you're in that waiting period. What a
And being able
valuable
to
piece.
yes, being able to
Yeah.
understand it helps me to then, to then deal with it, because we
Yeah.
can't heal what
Yeah.
we don't understand,
Yeah.
and so in relationships, whatever the dynamic is, again, especially if I've shared something vulnerable, I've just been able, like, to calm myself, ground myself, whatever it is, in these moments and say, it's okay. It's okay. You were strong in sharing that. And it's okay if the response that comes back is not, what you need or what you want. You did something strong in expressing that. And that's one of the things that I love about myself is that I've never let that stop me from still talking. And there's different times throughout my life where I've been silenced or I've chosen to
Mhm.
be quiet. But ultimately, that's the theme of my life, is you can't shut me up.
And thank you for that. Thank you for that. I love that. So after you told your parents, That abuse stopped, but you can't go back. You have to move forward now, and what he took from you cannot be restored.
No.
And so what did your life look like after that, Amber?
Life went boom. Life just went boom. My grandparents divorced, as they should have. So the
Wow.
next day when my parents went to go confront my grandfather, he initially denied it. And claimed to, just be rubbing my stomach, which was part of the grooming process. Was he did that
Yeah.
in front of adults, and so that seemed like a very natural, you know, sign of affection. And so my parents did come back to me and asked if I had been mistaken at all. And so again, even now understanding that I believe that my parents handled that conversation with care. Even though I don't have, specific recollections of that conversation, I just know that this is what happened. Um, that too was very damaging because I was questioned. But something else that makes my story very unique is that when I held firm to what I had said and they went back to him, he admitted it.
Yeah, that is unique because
Yes.
most of them still don't. Yeah.
Yeah, just double, triple down. And no, he admitted it. This man never sat a day in jail. I remember going to the courthouse. He was charged. I remember going to the courthouse. It was just me and my dad. Um, and being told that I needed to be there, in the event that the judge wanted to hear from me. And I actually don't know why my mom wasn't there. Other kids to take care of. Maybe I don't know, but I needed my mom that day.
Yes, you did.
Um, my dad ended up going into the courthouse, and left me on a bench where I was too little that my feet couldn't even reach the floor yet. And that's a feeling that still causes a visceral reaction, because that's another moment where I was left alone. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't find this out until I was 33 years old, and I had a short period of time where I was working for a law firm in downtown Salt Lake. And so I was able to pull, records that I wouldn't normally have. And that's when I found out what my grandfather was actually, charged with and everything. And he ended up taking a plea in abeyance, with 2 counts. The plea in abeyance was for 2 counts of lewdness in the presence of a child. And he was court ordered to do a year of therapy during his probation. And then after that time, as long as nothing happened within that year, it was like this never happened.
Wow.
And when I saw that, I called my parents and I said, "How's this even possible? Like that's not what happened." I don't know why my dad told me this. I'm grateful that he did. But my dad told me that he went in that day to ask the judge to take mercy on my grandfather. Um,
Was this his father?
yeah. Yeah. Instead of seeking justice for his baby girl, that's what played out. And um there are so many things that happened, during the very short time frame actually that my grandfather lived. He died right before my 18th birthday, so it was about 10 years from disclosure to his death, less than 10 years actually.
Mhm.
And it frustrates me because now facing me would be totally different, but I couldn't face him.
Yeah.
I did face him. I'm the one that stopped it, and I'm the one that got in trouble. And so at that point in my life and for so many years, I needed my parents to be the ones protecting me. And we continue to see him. We continue to see him.
Wow.
Um, we were not, allowed to be alone with him. That was the boundary that was set. But that's a question that I've asked too, why? Like, why? And any time that I have tried to talk about this, whether It was from the time I was 8, 9 years old to current day. My dad shuts it down pretty quickly, but definitely during, my teenage years, I was punished. Either, I got yelled at and said, we're not going to talk about this, or I was given the silent treatment. Um, and to my mom's credit, we've had a ton of very hard, very healing conversations where this woman has done something that I think would be incredibly difficult. And that's just to hear me and to hear the hurt, the disappointment, and allow me to ask questions. And she's answered them honestly. So,
and I think about the culture.
yes.
And I don't just think it's here in Utah. I think it's the culture everywhere that there's like, well, they were very young.
Yeah.
They're going to forget about it.
Yeah.
It won't affect them as if like they were an adult that got raped. It's different and blah, blah. And they make this excuse because they're afraid to face it.
Yes.
They don't really want to believe that they were in some way also accountable for what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just not what happens.
No.
That you don't forget. And we have research and instances that are seen where they are just like babies and they remember.
Oh,
And it has
yes.
affected them for their entire lives. You went on from this situation in living in your parents' home, and you went on out on your own. And so then maybe the parents were able to say, oh, well, now she's gone. She's in charge of her own life now, and we're no longer responsible. So whatever happens from this point on is hers to deal with.
Yeah.
But it didn't end there for you.
No, no, not at all. No, not at all. And to your point, we know now that the body keeps the score. And
Yeah.
the impact of childhood sexual abuse is monumental. And every child does have an opportunity and a chance to be able to recover from something like that, given the right resources, the right support, the validation, the community. All, there's so much that plays into it. Therapy. But for my parents, they felt like if they sent me to a therapist, somebody else would fix me and we'd be fine. And not even me. It was a me thing. I was thankfully I was the only person in the family that was abused. But that has been very lonely for me and immediately put me on the outside of the family unit that I never have gotten to experience the same as the rest of my siblings, cousins. It's been very different. And so that has been an effect of the abuse as well. But there were so many things, trauma responses and behaviors that I was exhibiting that instead of being given the grace of understanding, hey, this thing happened to you, so it makes sense that you're behaving this way. No, I was grounded all the time. I was shamed. That's how I spent my youth, was being grounded and being told that I was the bad girl. And so at some point in my teenage years, I just remember being like, bet, you want to label me the bad kid? I'm going to be the bad kid.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even as bad as, as I could have been. But what I realized is that the word victim has such a negative connotation to it. And so for me, I was never treated like I was a victim to begin with. And I internalized that, especially because my parents were punishing me for any decision that I made. I took that on and I said, well, then my trauma didn't affect me. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And so then I took the stance of I'm the bad girl. I'll just own that shit, right? And so that's kind of been my life mantra, is just own your shit. And I still believe in that, but in a different way now. But that
Right?
caused,
Yeah.
yes, accountability is huge, but let's not take accountability for other people's
Yep.
actions. That's the thing that I've really learned. That did so much damage to me. I I ended up robbing a store that I worked at with friends when I like
Yeah.
a month after I turned 18. And so I went to jail. You know, this is all this
You're
is
an adult now. Yeah.
yeah, yep. I'm an adult. Do stupid things, and that's what's going to happen. And so I did. I was sentenced to 21 days of work release, which meant that I had to be in jail if I was not working. And so I got off for 3 days good behavior because they had no idea why this angel looking 18-year-old, was in jail. Um, but yeah, I just started to make very rebellious decisions because that was me using my voice in the only way that I knew how. I was crying out for help, and I was self-punishing, and I was building this self-hatred that damn near killed me. I mean, on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
And I was just digging this hole, right? That's a big, huge part of the metaphor of all of this. My book being called Whole, My Journey to W. And I was just digging this hole that I didn't know how to get out of. And I didn't have people that were trying to help me in the way that I needed it. I was facing a lot of shame and a lot of blame instead. So yeah, I spent my youth, rebelling and in trouble and in jail at 18 years old. And when I had that experience, that was kind of like a wake up moment for me, and like, oh God, this is not the life that I want. Um, and so I was like, okay, and I lost all of my friends at that time. And so I decided to kind of look for a new job, and I found this new job where I met this guy that was a couple years older than me, and I didn't grow up being the cutest, skinniest girl. So that didn't help either because I just had zero self-worth, and I was
Yeah.
bullied and told that I was fat and ugly my whole life, and my whole youth anyway. And so I met this guy. He was a couple years older than me, and knew that he was flirting and interested, and I was so flattered. And so we began a relationship, and come to find out he was married and told me that he was getting a divorce. And I am young, I am naive, I am dying for male validation and
Yeah.
attention. All
Any
of
sort
these.
of affection.
Yes, exactly. And so even when he told me he was married, but still he said he was married and they were, separated or getting divorced. And all, so I was like, oh, okay, that's fine with me. And that relationship didn't last very long. But when my dad found out, my dad went and told my bishop. And I got called in for a bishop's council, and I ended up being excommunicated. And I was just having this conversation with my mom yesterday, I believe. And
Okay.
she said, she was asking me who the bishop was. And so I told her, and she said something about wasn't it just him? And I said, no. I said, this was 5 men. This was 5 men from our ward, a lot of my friends' fathers. And it wasn't just, hey, I've been having a relationship with a married guy. It was, here's when I started having sex, and here's everything that I've ever done. I spilled my guts, because I wanted to repent at that point in my life. And so I was excommunicated and, or not excommunicated, excuse me. I was disfellowshipped at that time.
Disfellowshipped. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, just again, just kind of took on this, I'm, that didn't help with the feeling of I was worth anything. It just added to
Yeah. It
the
confirmed
stigma, the
that
title
that they
yeah, that I was
they
the
were
bad.
all right. Yeah, it is you. You're
I'm the
bad. You're a
problem.
bad girl.
Yeah,
This
I'm the
wouldn't have happened
problem.
to you if you'd been anybody else. And blah blah
Yeah,
blah blah blah.
yeah.
It just left you there in that dark, dark place. Amber, as you wrote this book from now this healing point, because you and I both know the average age of the woman who discloses
Mm-hmm.
childhood sexual abuse is 54.
Crazy. Yeah.
That for me is just like, what? And yet, at some point in your life, you made a decision and you shifted, you sought help, you stepped out that brought you to this point of healing. Was it a single incident that kind of shifted that for you? Was it a gradual thing?
It's
How did
both,
the
right?
crack in the door happen?
It had to be gradual because it was all of these things that led up to a moment that changed my life once again. I was married to my boy's dad. We were together for about 10 years. And when I divorced him, it was on the heels of what I now can recognize and again point back to, oh yeah, no, this kind of changes things. And that was a conversation that I had with my family and said, hey, I need to fix this. I need to heal. I was a mother at this point. There were still things that were coming up.
Yeah.
I was the good girl now. I was doing all these, I wasn't doing anything that my dad could be disappointed in me for anymore. And so I really thought that this was coming from a place of, we're finally going to be able to have this conversation and we're going to be able to heal together. For the longest time, I felt like the only way that I could heal was together. And so I had called everybody in and said, hey, I need to have this conversation. And, I am just distraught. I am bawling and I am explaining to them like why I'm feeling the way that I'm feeling. And my dad looked me square in the eyes and he said, haven't we dealt with this shit already? And I don't
Oh.
remember very much. I don't remember very much after that. But what I will tell you is that a year later, I ended up leaving my husband, and there's a whole lot that went into that. But for the 4 years between husbands, I was in crisis. I was in the worst place that I've ever been in my life. And I didn't know it at the time. And I was also treated very much like, you're crazy, and I was crazy, but hello, I had every reason to be crazy.
Yeah.
And so I just was spiraling. I was spiraling. And the way that I have always numbed myself has been through sex. I have been fortunate enough to avoid drug or alcohol addiction. But that's how I have both numbed and punished myself. And so, during that time, I just was dating random people and, I just was being very careless. I loathed who I was. And I had babies at this point. My oldest at this point was 9 and my youngest was 4. Um, but the turning point for me was actually being date raped in 2013 and being arrested a week later at my ex-husband's house because of a confrontation that I got into with him and his now wife. And I got arrested in front of my 3 kids because I pushed her. And there's more to that story too, but that's the crux of it. But getting arrested in front of my 3 kids, that changed everything for me. And suddenly, going from dealing with being raped a week ago and trying to just like process through all of that, my new battle front and center was trying to retain the rights of being a mother.
Right.
And during when I was raped, I did report it to the police, and so I had gone to the hospital to do a rape exam. And during that rape exam, they had a victim's advocate come in. So she had left her information, and I didn't reach out after this. It wasn't until I got out of jail the day after being arrested, and I was like, okay, like I need help.
Yeah.
I need help because until that point, I had not been back to therapy. Therapy was something that was mandated in my youth, and I was very resistant to it. And so I was 33 years old, and I knew that I needed help. And I almost didn't get it through the Rape Recovery Center because of this pending charge that I had. But thankfully, the directors at the center listened to me, and I just said, I really, really need your help. Please help me. And they did. And that therapist was amazing. I think I worked with her for about 6 months, and this was a free service. I was homeless at one point during this time in my life. I was couch surfing all the time. I had no money.
Wow.
And this, so this service
Where were your children during this
back
time?
and forth, my mom helps a lot with them. We just moved different places a lot. And so, my period of being homeless was a very short time, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
there was a time I didn't have a place to live. And so I lived with siblings at different times, anytime that I could afford my own place or sharing with roommates, that's what I did. But it was, man, we were everywhere during this time. And there was a time that I remember thinking, um, these kids are going to be better off without me. And I felt like I just needed to leave the state. I just needed to, because I felt like I was dragging them down. And I knew I was not being the mom that I wanted to be. I never left them, but they saw things that kids shouldn't see, and they had to be so much a part of my trauma, that even though I understand it today, makes me sick to my stomach that my kids have had to experience some of the
Yeah.
things that they've had to with me. But that was a pivotal moment in my life. And even though it still took time and years, um you know, taking that step and going to therapy at the Rape Recovery Center was very instrumental. It was an instrumental part of my
Yeah.
journey. And then the other thing that changed is that I met my second, now ex-husband, and so my life was able to calm down again. I wasn't out dating. I had
Mm-hmm.
settled very much back into the mother role and the wife role and the home, and someplace that I'm very comfortable, or I was. And so life just kind of evened out. And I started going to therapy with a woman who actually was a church leader of mine growing up, and so somebody that I knew and trusted and I knew cared about me. And so I spent several years doing therapy with her, and just, we did EMDR and different types of therapy, a lot of talk therapy and just processing. So it was me wanting to change and me wanting to heal. And part of the problem, or my frustration even now, is that wanting to heal was never a thing that I didn't want. But it wasn't until I was a much older adult, I was a mother myself, that I then started to seek out not just even therapy, but different just resources and a better understanding of trauma and different things like that. So it's really been, I had to, I, you know, it's not fair. It's not fair. The things that happen to us because somebody else makes a decision to take something from us, it is not fair that we have to live a life so affected by somebody else's decisions. But that does not change the responsibility of our healing being on us.
Amen. Amen. I'll never forget the day after I spoke about this being accountable situation and about how that we get to choose today what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
And that, and when we accept accountability for what's in our life, and afterwards this woman just coming up to me in tears and just said, so I'm accountable for what my dad did to me. And as I wrapped her in my arms, I just
Mm.
said, no, my love,
Yeah.
your dad is accountable for what he did. The piece that you get to be accountable for is how you deal with that now.
Yeah.
And how you react with that and how you allow it to affect your life.
Yeah.
And what you either move with that and do with that is your piece. But that was never your piece and will never be your piece. What your
No.
grandfather did to you is his piece.
Yeah.
And you're not responsible for it, and you don't have to atone for it, but it affected you in massive ways.
Massive.
And so your piece then is to be the light that you truly are. As I've watched your journey, Amber, between even in the little bit that I've known you, I've seen your light just explode. I'm so excited for people to read your book because not only is your book a memoir, there are lots of books out there that are memoirs. Your book goes a step beyond, shines the light on the path to healing and what that looks like. And you even go so far, which is the piece I think we don't address at all, and that is the need for the cultural shift.
Yes.
Not just the personal healing, our culture, our planet. In order to move forward and not have these individuals going through this, our culture has to shift.
Yes.
I know you have some thoughts on that, Amber, and
So many.
And we walk together with that.
Yes, we do.
Share your thoughts with me on how you think the cultural shift can happen and will happen.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So I saw a piece of a podcast on the Refined Resilience Carrie Hill's podcast. Sure. She had Chris Yaden, who is the managing director of Sapria. We both love Sapria. And this was a 2-minute clip. But within this clip, Chris was talking about a study that Sapria and A Bolder Way Forward had, some research, some market research that they had done not too long ago. And he said, and this is all about, childhood sexual abuse and understanding. And he said that there were 2 main things that really stuck out to him. And that was that through this research, that the majority of Utahns do not think that childhood sexual abuse can be prevented. Yeah. That's terrifying.
That's very
and that the
terrifying.
other thing is that the majority of Utahns do not think that it is an issue in their community. So when we talk about a cultural shift, we have to start here in our state. And when I tell you that when I left Utah in 2019, 2020, whenever it was, I moved to Texas with my ex-husband. When I knew I was divorcing him and I was having to come back to Utah, I was almost as angry about having to come back to Utah as I was about everything that happened in our marriage. I did not want to come here. And the beauty of where I am now is that I actually get to affect change here. And there is nothing more powerful or meaningful, especially in something where you're trying to make sense of the senseless. This is it. This, my voice, my story, anybody that is willing to listen to me and can learn anything, that makes everything worth it. Everything. Yeah. And so that it's a collective effort, though. The more of us that speak, when you give me a platform to do this and other people that have and will, that's powerful because that's brave of you. It's brave of anybody that is willing to sit in a space like this that is, in my opinion, by far the most heavy, uncomfortable thing to talk about because we don't clearly want to admit that it's a problem. We cannot change things if we are not willing to admit it, if we're not willing to talk about it. And so my book is actually coming out in partnership with Sapria.
And I love that. Yeah.
Yes. And you're gracious enough. And I'm so excited that you're going to MC that event for me, the book launch.
I am so honored to show up and be there. And
I'm so excited.
Shine
These
the light.
are all full circle moments, right? And you sit on the board of Sapria. You're, like all of these things that once I got out into my community, just started to like intermingle and it's gotten me to where I am now. And the community that I have built here in Utah, a place that I just associated with with terrible,
Yeah. Cover
hurtful,
up,
harmful
male
things.
dominated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Yeah. And that no matter what, and I can't say no matter what, there have always been some people in my life that have been very supportive. But for the most part, I was raised and taught to be quiet. We weren't going to talk about this. And so the power,
Totally, you were told that.
oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. That's where I
that's one
take
of the
my
parts
power.
that's just so hard for me to
Yeah.
hear.
Yes.
And
And
that you
that's,
went alone with your dad to the courthouse.
yeah.
And that your
Yeah.
mom and dad left you that night after you told them. And I just want to just cuddle you up and hold you and allow you to express all those emotions.
and that's
And I
why I
know
love
you,
hugs now.
and I know you have done that. I know you've gone through that expressive thing. But just like things I have gone through that I believe I've healed from, I have those moments
Yeah.
where the pain comes flooding through. And
Oh,
I
yes.
may not be experiencing the trauma right now, but the remembrance is embedded in my body.
Yes.
The remembrance of what that pain felt like.
Yeah. I don't think that that's something that ever fully goes away. It'll be interesting to see if and when I get to a point where I can share my story without getting emotional. I doubt it, because there's so many pieces, especially
Yeah.
you're going to talk about my kids. But there's so many different pieces. And Mary, this book is hard to read. It,
Yep.
especially, I think, if you know me, it's really, really hard to read.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think that really sets my book apart from other memoirs too is not just that I walk people through the healing, I own my shit. I talk about some things
Yes,
that
you
I
do.
have done in my life that are not fun to talk about, that are embarrassing, that are shameful. I talk about this because we need to understand trauma. We need to understand trauma responses and behaviors, not so that we can excuse what our choices are, because no matter what, we are never exempt from the consequences, but so that we can lend empathy, compassion,
Yeah.
understanding, so that we can work to minimize re-traumatizing or triggering somebody, so that's led me to a whole new thing, and it's this company that I'm starting. And so all of these different things are just like, when you say that you see a light in me, I see a light in me that I have never seen.
I love that.
And I love who I am. I love who I am. I love who I
That
am.
is like the best. That means so much to me that you are now at that point.
It took a lot to get here.
Yes, it did. And your strength is amazing, Amber. We have 1 minute left.
Oh my gosh, it goes by so fast.
I know. And in that 1 minute, I would like you to share what is the company that you now started and
Yeah,
the why behind it.
absolutely. Thank you. So the company is called Whole Heals, Heals. And it is training that I am developing that delivers trauma-informed and neurodivergent-centered training to industries that don't typically have it. So there's definitely a focus on the trauma part, but I really wanted to include a neurodivergent piece because I have an older son that has neurodivergence and seeing things that he's gone through.
Yes.
But most industries don't have trauma-informed training, and that's such a buzzword these days, but it needs to be. So I'm never going to be sorry for saying it.
Yep.
And this training really is meant to be delivered to people leaders, and HR, so that we're at a high level, at minimum. I have got different tiers, but at minimum, we're coming in and we are helping for people to understand, who deal with people, what is trauma to begin with. And then helping to recognize different trauma responses and behaviors, because there are people that will say, hey, I'm going through this, or I've been through this, but there's a lot of people that won't. And instead of just labeling somebody as problematic for whatever reason, if we start to look through the lens of what happened to you versus what's wrong with you, and Oprah Winfrey and Dr. Bruce Perry wrote an amazing book, but that opens our door, right? If we're willing to look through that and then teach ourselves so we have a better understanding, we minimize trauma. And I just have this belief, and this comes through, a 9-year career in tech that I'm walking away from. Tomorrow's my last day.
Oh my gosh, girl, that is like
Yeah,
amazing. I can't even believe you're walking away.
I know.
But
There's a
it's
part of me that
time.
feels crazy,
It's
but it
time.
is. It's time
You
to
have
jump.
a new thing, a new calling.
Yeah. But this comes through my experience in just, being able to share my story at work, but then having different experiences where I was traumatized or I was triggered because of things that people said to me, when hard situations happen. And it was me understanding that it's not that these people don't care about me. They have shown that they care. They don't understand. And so for me, it's no different than, hey, this is why we don't say these words anymore. It's raising awareness and it's educating people, because if we can heal the workplace, we can heal the home.
This is particularly poignant for me right now because we just experienced, and no matter when you're watching this podcast, this just happened with the school shooting in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Where this 22-year-old trans individual went in, killed 2 people, wounded 18, and then killed himself. When you talk about seeing people, if we could shift our culture to seeing him as a 5-year-old, to seeing him as he went through puberty, to seeing him in high school, to seeing someone who is obviously experiencing trauma, any child who is set apart, any child who is overacting,
Yes.
any child who is trying to make themselves whole in any way that develops the kind of pain that this person must have been experiencing and self-hatred to commit such an act. The act is heinous.
It is.
But the culture has to shift, Amber. We
It's
can't.
it's our responsibility. We can't not accept responsibility for the way that we treat people builds people into who they are. And we don't want that responsibility as a community. And no matter what, like I said, we are not exempt from the consequences of our actions. No matter what has happened to us in the past, ultimately we have the decision of who we are going to be. Always. And there is healing, I truly believe, for everybody out there that is willing to take those steps.
I do too.
But
And
it is a community responsibility.
To see it and to help and to want to help rather than just shove them, oh, they'll be gone soon. They're graduating this year. We don't need to worry about them anymore. They're somebody else's problem. And then we wonder why this stuff is happening in our communities and in our cultures. We are breeding it rather than shifting and seeing something else. Your voice, Amber, this book, your new company is going to help people see that now in companies rather than just seeing the person who's a loner or crazy or he's kind of weird. We don't know what's wrong with him. He doesn't join in. He makes the weirdest comments. Instead of seeing that and having the skill set to deal with it, we now, at the current time, just avoid it.
Yes.
And then they show up with an automatic weapon in our workplace and wonder, oh my gosh, why didn't, somebody stop him? Well, the somebody is us.
Yes.
Thank you for your gift. Thank you for your light. Thank you for being willing to not hide. Your gift of vulnerability to be able to show rather than hide will heal thousands. I just want you to think about that for a minute. The ripple effect of stepping forward and no longer hiding. The ripple effect of your healing is going to heal thousands.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that I know you. You're part of my life.
Forever.
Forever.
Forever before and forever after. Yes. Oh, I love you so much.
Oh my gosh. As this book comes out, of course, we're going to have links at the end of the podcast. One to Amber's website, so you can learn about how can my workplace, my organizations, learn about this and begin to heal rather than just wait to be a victim of a shooter that's coming in the front door. Okay. Or having been raping someone in the parking lot, or whatever else it is that's going to happen in your workplace can be stopped.
Yeah.
And we're going to include the link to all of Amber's socials so you can follow her and her journey. We'll also include the link as to where to buy the book. And you, my listeners, can be part of the healing process. You can be part of the solution of this.
Yes.
We don't have to sit by anymore and just say, what can be done? It can't be fixed. Nope. Now you've seen. Now you know. Don't look away. That's my only challenge. That's Amber's challenge.
Absolutely.
Don't look away.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
Until next time, we are all about crafting our meaningful lives. And yes, we are our brother's keeper. Namaste.
Crafting a meaningful life.